Planner Training Session 10, Risks and Responses. Okay, so we're in our risk register here. This risk register's had quite a few risks put into it, and in fact a number of them have been managed with responses, etc. We're just going to investigate how that sort of process works. So here we have a risk that might have been put in early on in the process. It's currently on a status of open, and it's titled a new risk. So let's double click on it. And here we can see the information that we saw before when we were entering a new risk. We had a cause, perhaps an event and effect, some categorization and status, etc. We had the date that it was originally registered. When we come and look at the inherent risk form, we can see some information about how we classified that risk at the very beginning. Hopefully though, this risk is going to be managed through time, and as we start to manage it, we might want to keep track of some information about how we're managing that, which we can do here in the comment field, either by typing in some update about what we're doing, or we can right click on here, copy, we can paste content in, we can copy content out, and we can also insert links to files, and those links can be local links to files on a network or on a local machine, and they can also be project in a box type hyperlinks to documents stored in the main project system as well. So we can add a range of content here to support what it is that we're doing in terms of documenting and managing this risk. We may also though want to go for a more formal approach, which is to manage formal responses. So here we have the ability to list a range of responses for this risk. We can see there aren't any here, and in fact as we clicked on this risk, no responses highlight in the responses area as well. So we can add new responses here, and we again have some classification of those, and you can add to this again as part of the customization of the risk register if you want to. But we're going to do a mitigation here, like that, and we're going to put in an owner and the person who's going to be responsible for achieving this, and we've got a status again for this response and a date allocated, and perhaps we want to record a date due. And here we also have exactly the same sort of comments field where we can start to record what's going on with the responses as well. So we can create any number of responses here, exactly the same idea, create and add another or create and close that we will have seen previously. And as we add our response to this area and go and save the risk, the response will then appear in the responses pane below. Now as we start to add responses and we're doing something to reduce hopefully the risk, we can therefore come and look at the residual risk rating figure. So we have these two ratings for the risk: inherent risk, which is what it was when we first identified it, and residual, which is what we think it is now. And automatically a risk, when you first create it, will inherit the inherent values into the residual area. So if you just want to look at any one set of values, you should always use the residual set, because they should be the latest up-to-date ones. They'll either inherit the inherent ones, or they will have been changed, as we're about to do now, to reflect what the current position is for this risk. So now actually we think we may have reduced the probability of this risk occurring, like that, and we might have also change the impact and the proximity. In this case we're going to leave those the same. And the other thing we might have changed is the expected value of this risk should it occur. So maybe in this case we've reduced that in value as well. So I can now save those changes here, and we'll see that's been updated into our list view of risks. We also now have something in the responses area as well. And in fact, clicking on that item, I can open the response directly from the responses list if I want to. So, several extra pieces of data here. We're going to talk much more later on about analysis of these, but I want to investigate first of all a quick part of that view, which is the management of this responses pane here. So responses are very important if we're going to manage our risks in a formal way, not just putting the risk in, but also updating its status, etc., and managing its responses. So if we go to edit the current view, we'll see that in the general setup here, obviously this view form view management form is different to the one for tasks and plans, because the fields that we can have displayed here are quite different. So firstly, we are in fact even showing responses. We don't have to show the responses pane like that. It can just have a big list of risks and no responses showing at all. If we are showing responses, we have the ability to show all responses. So now I've done that, we can see that all responses across all the different risks are present. And in fact, as we click on a particular risk here, we'll then see which responses are associated with it, in a very similar way to the way that when we were in the plan and task area, we clicked on the Gantt chart view for a task and it highlighted the tasks associated with it in the task list, and if you click on the task list, you've got the Gantt chart view row highlighted. Exactly the same sort of idea here, apart from it might be one to multiple relationship. So here we can see, we click on this risk, it has 2 responses associated with it, the ID highlights all that as well. If we come and click on an item here in the response list, it will go and identify which risk in the risk list it is associated with as well. So it ties those two together quite nicely. So this all responses, show all responses, is a new adaptation for 3.1. It used to just show the responses for the risk that you had highlighted. So that allows you to then potentially order and manage the data associated with some of these response categories. So you can keep an eye on due dates and who's responsible for particular responses across a range of risks. Okay, exactly the same sort of idea for adding and editing responses in other risks. We can open any risk at any time that we want to and add some more responses to it as we go along, and obviously updating and closing those as well as we progress. So pretty straightforward. That's risk responses. In the next tour we're going to go on and have a look at analysing our risks in some more detail, and in particular investigating views in more detail. Thank you.